All right. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Everybody hear me all right? Little quiet. I don't know how to fix that. Let me see. How's that? Any better? Hello, Riz. How are you? Let's see to make sure I've got everything set up here. I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. Been running around a lot today. All right. We're gonna just chill out for like 5 minutes. Just make sure everyone gets a good chance to actually get here. Someone wants to remind everybody on the RP discussion that we're streaming now. Um, Also, my monitor's like here, so and the camera's over here. So when I'm looking this way, I'm just looking at that. Mm. Whew. Vodka. Also, you're gonna see me vaping. I'm just chilling out here. That's how I do. I've been playing some Breath of the Wild the last couple days. I needed a break from writing, but been. I think I'm finally starting to enjoy it. Honestly, when I first picked it up, I didn't like it, but it's starting to get the itch now. Uh, I'm playing the old one. I'm not playing the new one where you get to make torture devices. But if I beat this one and I like it enough, I'll get the new one and then we'll make some contraptions. Hi Nina, this is Ikenbon from Dragon Ball Infinity. I want to make sure that I can actually see the chat. How do I? Yeah, that's gonna be tough. I don't know how you. Is there a way to pop this out to its own window? Looks like we've got Nigmas, Kansu, obviously Riz, Lai. Um, I don't know what Endon's chat name is or Twitch thing. You don't look like a cute VTuber? I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I think is Magic Paper Endon? Is that do we have Endon here? Magic Paper is Cordium. Okay. Yeah, I'm just a I don't have those ring lights, and I mean, the camera and even the microphone that you're hearing, like, Kansu and Riz got those for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have that. It'd be like real grainy right now. I don't really do streaming or anything. I used to stream Skyrim on PlayStation 4. That was about it. And I had my one loyal viewer, which was Rizian. Okay. Well, it's been about 5 minutes. We got plenty of people here, so let's go ahead and get started. The way that we're going to do this is we're gonna read the logs. They should be pretty short. All of them are, under 2 pages long, so these should go by really quick. And I'm not gonna like award roleplay points until we're all done for the night. But what I want chat to do is, but we'll maybe discuss it depending on how much there is to really talk about after it's done. But then, I want to get chat's opinion about who they think should win the contest, who did the best, what they liked. I thought that this was a pretty cool challenge. I know that some people kind of struggled with it or misinterpreted it and wrote something that was a lot shorter than the actual link that was available. But I think there was a lot of ways that people could have gone about this, so we're gonna see them tonight and see what everybody wrote. And we're gonna start with Endon. His May short is called Homework. Mom, Dad, I'm bored again. Can I have another book? And I can't read that, Blue. Incomprehensible flow, a study of viscid liquids. All right, little Endon, I'll go get it right away. Oh, speaking of the young man, hello again, Master Endon. Oh, hi, Mr. Colonel, do you have more homework for me? I do, Master Endon, but it's a little different than normal. This time, I would like to give you a problem, and I'd like to see what you can think up for solutions for it. That's just normal homework. Not this time. This problem is more open-ended. Now, take a look at this video. Those are people shooting a guy, but he's not being hurt. Are the bullets fake? Is it CGI? Is one of them a bad guy? The bullets are not fake. It's not CGI. The person being shot at is the bad guy. So the bad guy's a meta, and he's very resilient to bullets. Yes, he is. These men shooting guns in this video are EDF police forces, which are often the first of our agents to engage with a threat. A bad guy, simply because they're local to almost any given area. But those people aren't usually very strong, so we give them guns. But the guns don't help, though, because the bullets are just bouncing off. Yes, that is the problem. We need a way to help our agents with a very strong meta bad guys on the field. Well, give them Zentonium bullets. Duh, Zentonium is anti-meta. That's what the shield is made with. We can't do that, Endon. Zentonians are very expensive, and we have a lot of this. Kind of officer, so we can't afford to give them all Zentonium bullets. How much more expensive than normal bullets? Let's say 1,000 times more expensive. Could you afford it if the bullets were only 2 times more expensive? Yes, if you could think of something that's only twice as expensive as a lead bullet, that would be great. I'll check in a month with your answer. Now that you... No, I already know. You can make just some of the bullets Zentonium. If only 1 in 1,000 bullets are Zentonium, then it's only twice as expensive as normal bullets. Oh. Well, I suppose issuing 1 bullet to each... No, they have to be mixed up with the normal bullets. Metas can dodge bullets, right? So a bullet that looks special, that they can just zip away from. So the bullet can hurt them, needs to be a secret Zentonium bullet, so you can't tell anybody. But just 1 bullet in 1,000 at random, I'm not sure that would do anything. The bad guy in your video gets hit with a whole lot of bullets. He's really big. So he does, and I guess that's not unusual. Once a threat gets dangerous enough, and a full squad would have, well, the exact number may be open to changing, that is quite clever, I suppose. Very simple and easy to implement, since we can do it from the logistics side. Did I do the homework? I think maybe you have, Master Indon. That was kind of dumb. Why didn't you bring something harder? Indon! It's alright, ma'am. I guess it was kind of dumb. I promise to bring something more interesting for you next time. Alright, Master Indon? You better. Again, I can't read this blue. Here you go, little Indon. Will you be heading back to your quiet room? Yeah, thanks. Bye. And there's going to be a patent, right? As always, you know, your boy is starting to get old enough that he could have this one in his name. Oh, that's quite all right. We still know what's best. Our son is very intelligent, but that doesn't mean he understands what money is really good for. His head for science doesn't give him a head for business. He seems smart enough, and also, you would be the manager of any such funds until he becomes an adult. Well, I suppose we could do something like that then, but you've seen him. If you give him a toy like money, he'll be sure to play with it, like he plays with everything else he owns. Are you sure you would want his time taken with things like money management? Why, he might have less time for you and your homework. I think we can agree none of us want that to happen. Ah, well, far be it from me to question how you raise your boy. I suppose I'll have the paperwork sent to you as usual, with the usual arrangement. Always a delight to have you by, Colonel. I'm sure it is. Okay, so, yeah, Riz is kind of hitting the nail on the head here. Like, Indon is kind of a young Tony Stark-ish. Like, he's not a builder, he's not an engineer in this scene. He's more of, like someone's a colonel of some kind, someone probably in the Earth Defense Forces or works with Legende or maybe just a special interest group, like a Lockheed Martin style person has, met Indon, is aware of how intelligent this young man is and is, using him as kind of a consultant for certain logistical problems, and treating it kind of like it's sort of a game or it's just some kind of hypothetical situation while his parents, I assume these are Indon's parents, both of them, are kind of managing whatever money comes along with it and receiving all that. Who knows if they're making a lot off of it or not. I think this is the first time that Indon's ever mentioned his parents, so it's kind of interesting to get this window into his younger life and to see those individuals as characters. So many characters, their father and mother are just dead. They're all it's a world full of orphans. It seems like even the androids are orphaned all the time. Their scientists always get blown up or killed or murdered or something before they go off. So this is a heavy dialogue piece. We do get kind of a window into Indon's younger years. We get to meet his parents. It's kind of interesting. It would be, I could see more of these actually. Maybe not exactly in this style. Obviously Indon's using the ability for it to just be a piece about dialogue in order to shorten down to get what he wants out of it without it going over the word limit. But if he were to expand on that and have more time and more freedom to really delve into it, seeing some of the other projects that Indon worked in as a young man, that could be an interesting series, or just a every now and then kind of slice of life thing that's going on. So yeah, good job, Indon. I like that one. That's a pretty strong start for the May shorts. And what I've got here is I've just got a little notepad file, and I'm going to score everyone myself in my own head right here. And I'll adjust these as we go through. Okay, so that was the first log. What are y'all's thoughts on it? Anyone have something they want to share with Indon with his short? Give chat a minute to maybe talk about it before we go on to the next one. So, Conch is saying that he liked that it showed that Indon's a young genius. Um, and Lai is saying that he agrees with the solution that Indon came up with. It's pretty clever. Like, it's pretty clever. I don't know how it would actually work out in the Dragon Ball universe, but it's a pretty clever idea altogether. Nemus is saying that Indon reminded him of a mid to early Doomiston. I don't really see that. Doomiston was kind of like a junk punk. You know, he was much more of like a Tony Stark engineer style, whereas like Indon builds stuff, but I think he's much more of like an industrialist, in my opinion. Lai saying, surprised he didn't mention that the tactic would quickly result in metas learning to avoid all bullets. Well, I mean, most, T2 is like the top end of the spectrum here, right? So the metas that are around are, I would say that the vast majority are like T1, and probably not even like great T1. Like, they're not protagonist level T1s. They're villain henchman level T1s. So I don't know if they could dodge them all. I think it'd still work overall. Not against an actual real villain, but it could take out some henchmen. And Cordio saying he doesn't know much about Indon. This is kind of his first run-in with him. That's fair. Raditz could catch bullets, but remember that T0 is not Raditz. T0 is Goku and Krillin at their first doing their training in the Eternal Hermit School, and like there's instances where Goku literally got hit with bullets like by launch and stuff, and then T1 is just a little bit stronger than that. Like in the next Weimat tournament. So I think bullets would still be pretty effective, or they might not hurt one, but if you get the one Zentonium bullet out of like 100 or something, I think it would work on a T1. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of instances in like the power scaling is almost impossible to really put a to define it clearly, especially within the show. There's Goku does catch bullets with his face, right? He gets literally shot and it does nothing. So, but I think the point just being that like it is possible for bullets to hit someone of that level. Like they can't. First of all, they can't dodge them all. Like maybe their aura could melt the bullets before they ever really hit or something. But if you're not expecting that one Zentonium bullet, like it's still gonna get you. Yeah, I did kind of like. I don't know. It struck me as kind of a rich. I felt like going for kind of a. That's the impression I'm getting. Maybe I'm wrong. Did Indon grow up wealthy? Like his parents are apparently getting contracts from some kind of colonel or something. Like that doesn't necessarily make them wealthy, but it sounds. It read to me like they had wealth. Is that close? Okay, well, I think that's some good commentary. Good job, guys. Glad to see you interact with your fellow role players. Like I know sometimes on Chat OC you guys talk a little bit about your plans, or maybe even privately, but I'd really like to see you guys comment more on other people's logs. Read some of the stuff that other people are doing, and either be encouraging or tell them your thoughts. Everyone likes that. Okay, so the next two are pretty short and pretty interesting. Riz, I'm gonna tell you guys before we start this one. The first one is for Lament of a Dynasty. I believe this is for it's been a while. Our Icer friend, Zalker. But when Riz heard about this contest, he started writing on it. It was like he told me it was like lucid poetry and stuff, like slam poetry is what he was kind of going for. So this is going to be really short, but Lost sun, the sun set on Halcyon days. You will grow in the shadows of your empire. The phoenix must die, Ash must settle before its glory can once again be set ablaze. All that shall remain are bones, ash, and rust with fleeting memory of what was. There will be cheers for freedom that will be the cacophony of chaos, the arbiter of calamity. Free from its chains, the serpent will devour itself, ignorant of its own impending doom. They will be free, dancing on the corpses of all that you love. The flames of rebellion will spread across the verse and set all ablaze. Can you carry the weight of all those souls? Will you forsake them? Or will you fight? Do you not love the crown that shines like a bright beacon of hope for the wayward? When you feel empty and weak, is it not the might of the empire that invigorates and empowers you? Will you douse the flames of rebellion with the blood of the usurpers and rest peacefully on a grateful universe? Lost son, stand, deliver the crown's judgment. So, very well done. Very interesting take on it. I think this is the kind of stuff that I was, sort of hoping to see, is like people kind of using the prompt and trying to do like something interesting with it. And this poem, I guess is what I would call it, is definitely I'd say these two, the next one is very similar to this one, but I think is, from what I've glanced at, these are the most unique, like in terms of like the writing style and what someone was going after. But it's hard to place like where, like obviously this is about Zalker. This is about everything that's going on in the the Freedom of Nighello arc, whatever we're eventually going to call that. The Rebel arc, and Lost and Rogue One and stuff. But it's like, is this something? Is this like a dream that Zalker have? These kind of like words in the darkness that is like, he thinks about, or is kind of like playing in the background of his mind as he goes through his missions. Is this an actual like proclamation? Like, I can kind of see in my mind, the way that I read this is like the Isarians still have like some really like, their empire has been around for so long that like certain elements of it are still kind of like ancient, and maybe they, I've even built in my areas like Skybase Tempest and stuff has like these paladins and stuff, and so like I could see there being like a sage around some cold fire that is like, using psionics or something to, look around the empire for problems, and delivering these kind of secret messages out to various agents, and where things in the empire are kind of cracking or crumbling. That's what I imagined when I read it the first time. Yeah, it could be Basham. It could be Basham. It's I guess there's really no way to like, it's hard to know who the speaker is, hard to know who the audience is, like who's receiving this message, where it's coming from. It's really just kind of a very like cerebral story that's being told. Anybody have any comments about this one? Zalker just needs a snicker. Needs a snicker. You're not you when you're hungry. And Indon says Zalker roared this out in a coffee house open mic night, and everyone snapped in applause. Yeah, pretty interesting. Pretty interesting from Zalker there. I think if Riz had had a better idea of how much more word space he had, like we might have gotten more, or it might have been, like more paragraphs, gone into more definition with it. But I think what we got was pretty good. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one then. This is another, this also is from Riz. This time I believe this is for Nova. It's not super specific, but I can't imagine it's for any other character. Let's do just this a little bit. Alright, and this is the Mayshort Destiny. Rai, Kuma, Yu, Rei. The warrior carries with them centuries of legacy. Kuma Kin, Bare Fist, Rai Ray, lightning spirit. Techniques passed on for generations. They come with a heavy weight, weight that shackles the warrior to the past. Fight! Fight, warrior, fight! Break free in the primal light. Use these shackles to train yourself so that you may bear any weight. Your predecessors, your master, picked you because you could be the best of them. Your love was able to rest because they believed and continue to believe in you, in your heart. Hardened totem, schools. These are just words. They will change over time, as will you. Say, do. Say, do. 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 Break free. Break the world in a clap of golden thunder. Yeah, so, I just wanted to say goodnight. Happy almost Friday. Happy almost Friday to you, Kurasu. So this is another, like, pretty cerebral one. I see this as kind of, I feel like this is Nova kind of thinking about maybe, based off of some of the words that were used here, Nova thinking about her students in the, in her sanctuary, specifically maybe like Koshiro and Yugen. It could also be referring to her. Again, this is kind of like higher, like cerebral level story that's being written here. It's not so much like a plot that's being told, so much as like a emotional vent, as far as I can tell. How'd you guys feel about it? Nina says the clap of golden cheeks. A lot of dummy thick martial artists in Nova Sanctuary. Yeah, there definitely is like an intensity here. There's a lot of like, it's very like call to emotion is what I would say. And yeah, it's very kind of like dream. All of this has been kind of very dreamlike. I think I liked the one before this better than this one, but I think they both are very interesting takes on the premise. We could count. I think if we put them together, the total word count would still be lower. Like, we could treat them as one contest entry, but only one character can get, the Dragon Ball. So, Riz says, "I'll spoil this one. This was Nova's way of shedding the past and not trying to live up to the Kumashiro and the Sai Hardens and just being herself going forward." Yeah, there's that too. I kind of feel like Nova had already done that, though, by creating the Sanctuary. Like, she's paying homages to her master, but I felt like it was a little while ago. It was, I think it was Nova Tranquility, and that was where I really felt like Nova had already, gotten rid of some of that. But maybe there's probably always still like an internal struggle or internal fight. And Ike, death of the authors, Nova immediately. I think that's a sign of good art if it's deep enough for more ratings. Yeah, the fact that, like, what's kind of cool about these is that you could interpret them in a lot of different ways, right? Like, some of the things that are listed here, especially like the rye part, I think is what really threw me off, because as far as I know, uh, and then all these references to like thunder and lightning and stuff. That's why I thought it might have something to do with Koshiro and Yugen, but because I'm not aware that Nova has a thunder or lightning ability. But very cool, very, very cool. So those are Riz's entries. And then we got to scroll up to get the next one. A lot of you guys had some kind of come in like on the last week or so of it. So let's see. I think we're gonna do Securing Lie's Retirement, which is May Short. Oh, I didn't skip any others, right? No, I think that's the next one. Okay. Oops. Alright, so this one I think is going to be a little bit longer, and usually there's a lot of characters in these, so I'm probably not going to be doing accents on these, but... 15 years. It took me 15 years to finally piece everything together. Answer why nearly 20 years after my shadow died, I met him again. An older man walked silently in a dull gray hall with a tablet in hand, his face wearing a cross between a scowl and a suppressed joy. The timing was perfect. The special operations group he had put together took 6 months. 6 months of shadow and mirage out in the field, one infiltration after another, preparing a catalyst to bring down the syndicate that had come to run his organization. The old man stepped to the ornate conference room door. Caldwell. Sir. A standard bow. The senior staff had already discussed the fate of the traitor. The holographic displays lit up, and the 1300 briefing happened without a hitch. Anything else, Caldwell? Caldwell let his eyes fall into a harsh glare. His demeanor shifted as he tossed the tablet over the table on his own feet now. Years of planning, organizing a clandestine operation under the nose of an old master had taken time. The man's stance was aggressive as he spoke. He's done, sir. Ima Gun Dai had taken note of the sudden shift in his subordinate's tone, casually grabbing the tablet and glancing it over. They were the full discharge forms for Lie Psycho. The confusion on the general's face was apparent. Excuse me? At long last, the dance is finished. Gundai's expression turned to one of anger as he slammed the tablet down, a look of irritation on his face. He took a breath, inhaling deeply while responding to the demand. Psycho is in fact not done. The vitriol in the general's voice was clear as he continued for a brief moment. He will never be done. The shadow is my... The focus and anger broke on the general's face as he blinked a few times, taking note of his HUD. 15 facilities, 8 on Earth, 6 more out in the asteroid belt. Nothing remotely legal about any of them. Shadow is done, and so are you. A harsh growl from the man who was seeing a life's work crumble into dust. What have you done? There was a panic now as Caldwell spoke softly, calmly returning back to his conference seat and leaning back. I'm well aware that you've never actually been in the field, but did you think I wouldn't recognize the man who trained me? There was a sickening realization that crossed the face of Gun Dai as he too let himself back down into his seat, processing the information. Then he tapped a button on comms and spoke calmly. Major Kubi, I need a security detail to come and place General Caldwell under arrest for treason. It only took a moment for a rugged voice to answer. General Caldwell, sir? Go ahead, Major. Is he being difficult, sir? Upon the question from the Chief Security Officer of SOC HQ, any remaining color began vanishing from the face of Ima Gun Dai. Caldwell shook his head as he responded. No, I think he's growing to grasp the situation. I'll call if he needs an escort out. Roger that, sir. Kubi out. A soft chuckle escaped from the old man as he had taken the tablet to give it a more thorough examination. The old man seemed to be in slight disbelief, then begrudging acceptance. I see. And what exactly do you think it is you can do? Release it? Slick smile from the old man. The game was always played in ways that were unsavory. Strikes and counters in the game of spies. Don't be absurd. You would put Earth in jeopardy. Even the Namekians would want blood. Caldwell suddenly took a sinister turn. Caldwell suddenly took a sinister turn? The veteran was aware that if he moved to destroy Ima Gun Dai, he had enough operation information that he could destabilize the whole of the EDF. No, I'm not going to release anything to the public. Caldwell leaned forward, his emerald eyes shining with a spark of clear electrical energy before becoming transparent in the socket. You are going to retire and fade into obscurity. The cruel smile that crossed Caldwell's face carried words far more terrifying than any legal action. Or I tell Lie everything. The weight of the words sent a tremor through Ima Gun Dai. Reluctantly, he brought up Psycho's release papers, quickly signing off on the retirement. So, Yeah, I'm saying Ima gonna die, but I'm gonna die. Is a lot of his names are kind of like that. Um, oh, did I must have skipped Nigmas's. I'm sorry. The forums is all kinds of messed up, but we've done this one now. I feel like this one kind of requires a bit of a backstory. I'm sure you guys probably watch those videos that I make, but Lai's been writing a lot of stuff. I think this is an event that was talked about in one of the previous solos that he had done, where this general Ima Gundai was like doing some shady shit. Like he was gonna take Lai's kid for something. I still don't know what that's all about. Um, and and in like Caldwell had to do the kind of this coup that happened. Like you saw pieces of that when they call the security officer Kubi, and then it turns out there's been a flip of the power structure there, and so that's kind of like it's referring back to there's a bit more information about this one in one of his prior solos. Um, I think I think if you didn't know that, if you weren't privy to those details, though, some of the this is kind of imparsible. Like standing on its own, I wouldn't know how anyone was supposed to know what was going on here. Uh, so how do you guys feel about that one? Riz is saying that he was expecting one of them to be a shadow. Um, Caldwell might have been Caldwell. I know he's like a general, but he's worked with the Mirage and Shadow for like a long time. So he might have been a shadow or whatever constitutes that, like the same SOCOM force that the Shadow and the Mirage and all of these guys are named after, right? Yeah, Kanto saying Gundai was the most MGS name ever. Okay. Um, this one's the most so far. Like this one's I think the closest to the present. I could be wrong about that. Endon's might be. It depends how old he is. And I think more importantly, kind of like ties into actual let's call them current events going on the channel, whereas everything else has been either like cerebral talk or something from long ago in the past that is just kind of its own character story. So it's interesting that Lai took the moment to do the short and included it in the current arc. I'll need to make sure that I add this one to the master arc page. I had kind of thought about doing these in their own separate arc, like a contest arc that we might put somewhere, but this one definitely needs to be in Lai's personal one. I'd say that was a overall pretty strong one, though. Same reason why Death Stranding is amazing. You have fun characters like Die Hardman and this guy who's literally just Gilduro. I don't know how to say that dude's name. Del Toro. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're gonna move on from that one. And I guess I missed Big Green Hammer Arm is what it was called. Big Green Power Hammer. Okay, so this one is by Nigmas for Genesis, and it's Big Green Power Hammer. This one's a little bit longer, but so let's get into it. And this is Genesis from years ago, so apparently this has happened in the past as well. A Namekian wandered through the packed earth paths of the furthest outskirts of Cinnamon Town. His face had a couple of bandages, and he had old bruises on his knuckles. His clothes were nondescript, off-the-rack earth streetwear that strained on a frame that was startlingly large for one of his ancestry. He didn't look at people. He kept his gaze focused on the ground and ignored the people who took notice of him in their whispers. His face was grim, and that coupled with his size and battered appearance caused the people of the town to give him a wide berth. Lost in thought, he was broken out of his reverie by the loud mechanical bang and the sounds of cursing. He shouldered his satchel and picked up his feet, rushing in case someone was injured, but what he found was a human, scratching his bald scalp and still swearing at a bulky machine. Genesis breathed in. He took in the smells of grease, hot metal, and burning fuel. He looked around him and saw, arranged around the back of a freestanding shop, an array of equipment that didn't look very familiar. After some looking, the sight of what was obviously a furnace and a heavy block of metal brought it into focus. A metal forge. The human had a leather apron and goggles, leather gloves, and though he was an older man and moved with a certain care, his arms and upper body still bulged with impressive muscle. "Blasted, damned piece of junk power hammer! You damned thing, you had to pick the worst time!" The man didn't seem injured, but Genesis found himself curious. "What's wrong?" "My damned power hammer broke down in the middle of a big order, damn it! I have to finish 20 more of these in the next week." Genesis looked over at the finished products. They were lovely pieces, glittering steel blades, single-edged with a slight curve, elegant basket hilts, blades he knew. His training had included the use of weapons, though he'd never taken a liking to them. "Why so many?" You know how it is. New film they're making, some historic drama about well, you wouldn't know what a pirate is. Nautical bandits, you might say. Romanticized stuff, you know. Anyway, every damned extra needs a sword to look the part. Most of them are decorative, but they still need to look right. Because I'm a craftsman, damn it, or was. He kicked the stricken power hammer, producing a dull clank and groan from inside the casing. "I'm on a tight deadline. I don't have time to hammer these out by hand." He seemed to deflate, pulling a stool from behind the machine and sinking into it as the reality seemed to strike him. I don't know what to do now. I was counting on this order, and if I missed the deadline, I don't know if I can make rent this month, much less get this fixed. The contract penalties," he sighed. "Sorry to dump on you, stranger. Not very neighborly of me." He stripped off one of the gloves, revealing a beefy hand and forearms dense with muscle. "Name's Pratt. This is my forge, or will be for another couple of months. Hope you're not here to make an order." Genesis shook his head. "No, I'm afraid not," but he looked over at the machine. It looked simple enough. Probably just used hydraulics to hammer metal into shape. "Maybe I can help." "You? Green, you're a big boy, but you're no power hammer." "I don't know my way around a forge, but I can swing a hammer. I don't have anywhere I'm going or anything I'm doing, and I don't mind helping out." It took a little negotiating, but eventually Pratt was convinced. He heated a section of bar stock and used tongs to position it, then adjusted Genesis' hands on the hammer. Genesis breathed, let loose some of the constraints on his power, let it flow, and struck. The ringing of metal filled the air. Pratt jumped at the sound. "Try it again, consistently. Get a nice rhythm going, not too fast and about that hard." Genesis struck again. He didn't know much about forging, but this was not too different from the training he'd done. His muscles didn't have the memory for this, but he could adjust. He knew nothing of working metal, but he could swing a hammer, repeatedly and precisely. Only occasionally did Pratt need to adjust what he was doing. Genesis let Pratt control the metal, do all of the skilled work. It was jerky and slow at first as Pratt adjusted such an unfamiliar tool, and Genesis learned what was needed of him. They developed a flow. Pratt hadn't been joking. Even though the work they were doing would still leave the smith with tons of work to do, even this rough initial shaping of the metal meant a lot of time and energy, and there was no way a normal human, even one built like Pratt, could have the endurance to do it all by hand. Genesis even found to his shock that he was getting tired and sore. Pratt laughed at that. "Boy, you gotta be a trained fighter, right? I can tell by the shape of you, by the hands, see? But you ain't trained to do much else, have you? This is hard work, and it's hard work that doesn't use the same muscles you're used to using. Even if you worked hard to train your whole body, you're probably getting more use out of some of the muscles in your arm and shoulder than you're used to. It's hard work!" He stayed there for a few days, the longest he'd stayed in one place since he'd stormed away from the boxing ring and started drifting, assisting Pratt with completing the replica weapons he'd been constructed to forge. They worked together to find ways to make use of Pratt's skill alongside Genesis' power and stamina, and Genesis found the work peaceful. There was a quiet pleasure in making things, and as he packed his things to leave, he found he'd been missing the smells of hot metal and grease. Pratt clapped him on the shoulder as he was leaving. "I want you to have this, boy." In the smith's beefy hand was the hammer Genesis had been using. "You got a lot to learn before you can do more than slam sparks out of steel, but I think you got a knack for it, and you seem to enjoy the work." Genesis accepted the heavy hammer. He shifted it in his left hand, clasping hands with the smith, and smiled. Woo! That was a good one. I like that one a lot. Very good writing, very descriptive. For it just being like a short piece, like that's a complete like whole little adventure, right? Like really good. 10/10 for the accent alone. Is this a hammer that Genesis still has? I forget if I've seen him using one. Doesn't actually do anything with it, but yes, he still keeps the forging equipment with his stuff. Okay, very cool, very cool. I think that's a really strong contender. That's a really good one. All right, so we did Lai's retirement. Now we're gonna be doing. I believe this is a Yugen log, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Yugen. Okay. So the next one is Mayflowers: A Short Memory, by Kansu. The crackle and pop of burning logs snapped at Yugen's feet as he rested upon the mattress that was the grasses of Nova's proving ground. The sea of stars above was his only blanket, and his memories were his only companion. His mind drifted from one memory to another, regaling and depressing as he rode the river of thought. He took time to note all the events that had led him to this point, the highs and lows, and just how much he'd grown even in these last few weeks. The flows, the streams, all accumulated here to lead him to this point in his journey. He rode the current and let his mind slip back to the moment that defined his resolve. Yugen sat in front of a fresh mound of dirt, the clumps not yet smoothed out by time and the rain. He did not let himself come to tears, but the bloodshot of his eyes told the truth. "Why can we not just destroy all of the Pillar clans?" His master's voice answered him back. "Little Uchideshi, I understand your pain, but we do not destroy, we balance." Balance? This is the reward for balance! Yugen's eyes never left the mound that covered his fellow pillar. His best friend had died, and their numbers dwindled. Jambin stood behind him silently. "I've seen you kill, I've seen my brethren kill, we will end the circle." His master shook his head and tried to place his hand upon his student's shoulder, but Yugen shrugged it away. He wanted no comfort in this moment. His feelings were only of pain. "It is balance, not elimination. Our goal is to uphold, not to remove the foundation." Yugen's fist clenched dirt and squeezed it. He held it within his palm tightly, but not with fury. It was with passion. Passion for what drove him to uphold the balance of the pillars and for his fallen brother. Yugen returned to that gravesite day after day, wishing for the earth to give back what had been taken from him. But the dirt offered no miracle. It only returned a single sprout of blue flowers. Forget-me-not. Aw, that's a really powerful one. That's a really like sentimental, like deep memory for Yugen. It's interesting to see him, being vulnerable and angry and passionate, and seeing that how seeing that wound has closed over time. But like getting a second to see it when it was the most visceral for him. How do we feel about Mayflower's A Short Memory? Yeah, we just passed Memorial Day. Yeah, Lai's saying that he really liked this one. I think this one has the strongest like emotional gut punch. Like Riz's, the poems were cerebral. This is this is emotional. This is passionate. Give in to your anger, young Yugen. Trying to dark side him. Don't dark side Yugen. Koshiro needs to wed and bed him. Let's see here. Alright, so I think the next one is hypo. A symbol for what? I assume this is hypo. It could be fusion. I'm not sure yet. It's hypo. Okay. Okay. And this one's not too long. It's a little bit longer than some, but not too long. Alright. Amidst the gang's exploration of a scrap field in search of valuable components, Hypo and Raijin happen to be training at the top of the tower. The Assyrian was forced to balance on a single point with one finger so as to get a workout with his upper body. The leg is in better shape than before now. I'd like to do the Raijin voice, like the really Hypo, my thunderbolt, you know what a symbol is, kind of thing. But that's gonna hurt my throat really bad. So I'm afraid not, Master. He answered earnestly, with his caveman lifestyle as his sole experience for the majority of his life. Symbols were not part of his life, or rather the concept of them. Raijin removed out of his pocket an imperial symbol. It's one that Hypo no doubt recognizes. Did Raijin go to a city while hunting for the group? What you think this is, Hypo, my lad? The insignia of the Imperial Army that are after me and my friends. But why do you think that way? When you see the symbol, why do you remember such a fact? It's what we face when we're handling people that wear the symbol. Exactamundo, Hypo! Quirking a brow, Hypo's balance was nearly broken by having to shift his focus between maintaining himself and learning something new from Raijin. To his surprise, the man pulled out a bounty poster of himself. That caught Hypo off guard, so much so that he did indeed lose his footing. Gripping onto the top of the spire, he hung as Raijin lowered himself and continued to point at this poster. You're becoming a symbol, Hypo. That's exactly what you gotta be, a nimble. I still don't understand what you're getting at. More importantly, where the hell did you get that? A bit risky, especially since you said Ariel would be the one going around the cities, but I wanted to scout out some stuff. Yeah? I ain't get noticed. I'm quick and I wore a cloak. Most people that could recognize my power were dead, well, I hope. There's a bit of an awkward pause as Hypo gave Raijin a rather annoyed look, one laced with both concern and disappointment. To this, Raijin couldn't help but smile awkwardly as he hovered near the lizard. Hear me out, you come across symbols before. Ya fought plenty of beasts in those Arctic lands. Their silhouettes are symbols. Yeah? Of what, you might ask? A symbol that says you should stay the fuck away. You probably didn't think of staying away this first time you got curious, right? But you got your shit kicked in, you lived, then you see it in the silhouette. You're thinking of staying away. That's how all symbols work, you see, Icicle. A symbol is associated with an experience. For some of your hated empires, a symbol of hope, integrity, and unity. To you, it's a symbol of tyranny and oppression. Hypo lowers his eyes, vexation over, and realizes the meaning of what he's about what he's about to tell him. You're becoming a symbol of the rebellion, Hypo. That's why I got to tell you this. He pauses and he becomes sterner, which is quite uncharacteristic of Hypo's perception of Raijin. Stop with this wishy-washy shit. You're becoming important to people. People are holding hope you'll save them. You can't have doubts anymore in public anymore. If they see you doubting, you're gonna become a symbol of doubt, fear, and lack of perseverance. If they see you doing your best, one step at a time, clearing a path to good future, you're gonna be the symbol of heroism. To this, Hypo only replied with a blank gaze, not knowing what to say. What I really mean is it's time for you to choose what symbol you want to be. You've been trying to be a hero, but you're gonna have to be consistent with that. Some people see you this way, some people won't. Matter of perspective. Time to choose your way of heroism and be consistent. If you gotta doubt yourself, do it when you're taking a shitter and sleeping and pissing. I ain't care. But not in front of everyone. You're gonna cost yourself your image. Everyone's counting on you. Time to not let them down if you're gonna be saving them. Now you gotta start balancing again. Full-time reset. Begin. Raijin had only seen Hypo fight Minoko, and Hypo sure showed a lot of promise then, but what is to say he won't stumble on that road someday? This was a mere warning for the future to avoid the worst outcome in the most critical of moments. Hypo had a lot to think about. You could become the fastest alive, but you can't rush saving everyone. Alright, yeah. I like this one. This is good. Also, it's been such a long time since Hypo's been on chat. It's good to see him kind of in the background doing his training, still healing, still healing from his injuries, picking up basically where he left off. This is pretty good, and I think the message is pretty strong too. Hypo basically is the leader of the rebellion on Nig Yellow. I don't know if I go so far as to say he's become a hero, honestly. I think the grand total of everything that's really happened so far is Hypo, Cordio, and them fought 3 Imperial agents. They fought Zalker, and then they fought some Makono dudes. So I don't necessarily agree that Hypo is becoming a symbol of the rebellion. He's not done anything against the Empire. He's just defended himself against some officers. That would be my one critique or comment about that. I think what Raijin really should be saying is you need to get out there and actually fight the fight. But yeah, let's see. And you've got me reading Raijin's lines in a gruff Mick Grumble from Rocky. I don't know why, but when the very first time I read this character Raijin, the way that I read him was that he's so fast and stuff that he should talk fast, but it's hard to do. Shame. Riz says shame the character's gonna die a horrible death. We'll see about that. Stalker, you have been down in that Atlas for a long time, buddy. What kind of symbol he wants to be? And yeah, I like just asking what kind of symbol he wants to be. That's important as too. All right. Unfortunately, I don't think Hypo's here with us tonight, so he won't get to see y'all's your text chat. But I think he should be able to watch it on Twitch somehow after we're done. I don't know. Riz can probably figure that out if I don't know how. All right, that's a pretty strong one too. I like that one. I think the next one is Cordio. All right. This one's about the same length. I believe it's Cordio. A house, round in origin, sat on its lonesome away from a nearby village. Inside the house, it was pitch black, despite the constant sun from outside. It was darker than night on the inside. The house had been depreciating for years. Dust and cobwebs littered the inside. Inside sat a lone Namekian. At just 2 years old, a Namekian who was maturing but not quite an adult. This Namekian was sitting, huddled up in the corner of the house, his face buried into his knees. The silence was the only echo within the house, almost a deafening sort of silence, despite the house's broken-down shape. The Namekian within the house was known as Cordio. This Namekian had never particularly gone far from the village, this being the furthest he has ever gone on his own, despite being halfway to his maturity. His village life was all he knew, but despite that, people were expecting great things out of him, just like many others who were birthed within this home. Despite taking classes for both clans, Cordio didn't excel at either one. He wasn't a fighter. He liked the idea of protecting his people, but he didn't want to have to fight to do that. He could have become a priest. A priest still had the capabilities of protecting others using highly valued magics. However, despite trying to learn, Cordio was disinterested. He was longing for something more. At this period of his life, he was still unsure of what it was. Truthfully, Cordio had come to this house out of frustration. He had been ostracized for being different, something that wouldn't stop for most of his life on Namek. Cordio was almost like the black sheep of his village. At the very least, people who didn't want to become fighters or priests worked on improving the village. Cordio tried his best to do this at his age, but still found it difficult to keep up with the older Namekians, who had many more years of experience. Suddenly, a knock at the front door of the home completely shuts down all of the previous silence. Cordio winces at the sudden knock. A voice speaks out. "Cordio, I know you're in here. Please open the door for me. I will come in on my own." Cordio winces at the sudden knock. Cordio stands and hesitantly goes over to the front door, carefully walking past furniture debris. He opens up the door. An almost intense light shines through the house, revealing most of its true nature. Cordio puts his arm above his head to shield some of the light, but the person who stood before him was one of the village elders, someone who Cordio truthfully didn't know all that well. Cordio stares up at the elder, stepping aside to let him in. "I heard from your father that you ran off. He insisted that he should have come and got you immediately, but I am here on your father's behalf. He didn't want me to go due to my age, but there's something I would like to share with you, young Cordio," the elder explains. Cordio looks afraid, very afraid. He wasn't sure why, but he felt like he had committed a great act of evil by shutting himself away like this. I'm sorry. I'm so very sorry. I just... Cordio was cut off by the elder, patting Cordio on the head. "Young Cordio, it is okay. Let me speak, and you will understand my purpose here today." The elder pulls over 2 decent-looking chairs out of the debris. "Sit, young one, and let me pass on to you some advice." Cordio sits down, listening to the elder. The elder begins to speak. "My name is Viol. My purpose in this place was to help raise multiple generations, you included. It is rare for one of us to feel so lost and without purpose, young Cordio." Viol clears his throat and continues. "However, it is up to you to shape your own destiny. Nobody here in this village can tell you otherwise, even if that makes you an outcast to them." Viol pats Cordio on the head again. "You will be burdened by hardships, trials, and tribulations that test your limits, your faith, your pride and dignity. Maybe you don't understand what any of this means right now, but you will when you mature further." Viol removes his hand from Cordio's head. Truthfully, Cordio didn't know what some of that meant, but he was finally glad to have someone to understand what he was going through. "Thank you, Elder. Your words are too kind." Cordio stands up to hug Viol for a moment. Viol smiles, hugging Cordio back for just a moment. "Young Cordio, if nobody else believes in you, I will." After this brief exchange, Cordio heads back to his village along with Viol. Cordio did his best to follow Viol's footsteps rather than anybody else's by learning what Viol had to offer. This is perhaps what truly set Cordio up for his future aspirations and goals. However, just 2 short years later, after Cordio had officially become a Namekian adult, Viol passes away from natural causes. Perhaps Viol had been waiting for Cordio to reach full maturity, maturity. Perhaps he felt like Cordio could handle himself now. That said, Cordio cried at Viol's funeral with some of his village, not understanding why. Some showed sympathy, but not many. After this, for the next 14 years, before Cordio had set off into space, he would actively visit Viol's grave. This was the start of Cordio's journey. This one he had longed for a very long time. One that would ultimately lead to Cordio crash landing on Nighyellow. Very nice. Nice little window into some of the backstory for Cordio. I think, obviously, the format of this makes it, you've only got so much time and so much space and so many words that you could use for this. This could be a good way to start flashing back for Cordio and maybe go a little bit more into depth as to what, really makes him an outcast, where he's struggling, either in the priesthood or in the, as a warrior. And, it gives you kind of a jumping off point for that, for sure. Again, obviously probably not enough time to really have gone into this one, but I think overall this was a pretty good little window into Cordio's backstory. How'd y'all feel about it? Nima says he always enjoys Cordio stuff. Unfortunately, Cordio is having some trouble with his video and couldn't hear the reading, but he can watch it later. Yeah, and apparently Cordio and them are all working on a new log somewhere, probably through Google Docs or something. Yeah, I'd say this is like an extension of the bio, Riz. I think this is, I think contest, and I think, just having a moment, having a reason, an excuse to go and do that, and it'd be nice to see Cordio's real take on the Namekian lifestyle and the villages and things. I've done a little bit of Namekian life and training with Mosin, but we really haven't had a lot of stories that have taken direct really going into the society of Namek. There's people drop by Namek sometimes, but usually very rarely stay for long enough to tell those kinds of stories. Yeah, there are other planets than Earth. Earth's not the only planet. Honestly, I would say that for the vast majority of this time period, Hydia was the hot spot. I feel like Hydia and now Nighyellow and, of course, Earth have been the three big ones. Okay. I think we've just got one more, which is by Lai, and it's for Sax, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Sax. This one's called a request for Yalo. It was a silent scene, a triangle of elderly Namekian dressed in soft blue robes, seated deep within meditation. Externally, the scene was meek, stones arranged in traditional patterns among the elders, while all glowed with the brilliant azure glow of Yalo's essence itself. Internally, the scene was quite different. Where the Yalo elders sat physically in a Spartan area, their minds inhabited the great council chamber on the planet of Namek itself. There were only 60 elders present, and only a handful who had specialized in elemental attunement. The sensations of shock had ended. Diplomatically, Namek had remained mostly neutral. The main galactic powers mostly left Namek alone, and they responded in kind, so the choice to send out individual diplomats was an odd one. It's funny that we're reading that after that conversation. It made significantly more sense when the Grand Elder shared his visions of the elemental forces of planetary bodies becoming enraged and lashing out. The badge of diplomacy would simply allow the elemental priest leeway to interact with local populations in order to restore balance when needed. Back on Yalo, the three Namekian finally returned to their own body. Telepathically, the three began to spread the information to the rest of the colony. There were 2 elders on Yalo who had chosen the study of the elemental forces, and one of them currently sat in the group with robes anointing his head elder status. A few hours later, the number of Nameks had increased to the full 12 that governed the colony, each one in a seated position, now in a circular formation. The choice at first glance was difficult. Head Elder Tuska had nearly 800 years of experience, 600 of those especially studying how to commune with the wild elementals that traveled on cosmic winds. Sax had just recently earned the title of Elder and was by far the youngest to hold the title on Yalo, coming in at 396 years old. He was the only Elder on Yalo who had held the specialization to a proficient degree. Tuska had dozens of apprentices, just as Sax had been. Still, he held no candle to the head elder, so Tuska was the natural choice. After extended mental debate and conversation, the head elder finally spoke vocally as if it matter-of-factly. The elder was cognizant of something the others had seemed to overlook, which seemed to baffle the old Namekian, whose face and hands were stained with the wrinkles of time.
I do appreciate the confidence, my brothers, but after 8 centuries, even in the gravity of Yalo, this is a task for a Vero Namekian who can adapt to the physical strain.
There was a soft humility in the tone, and the sensation of uncertainty that rippled from Sax over the rest of the elders. The held elder didn't give anyone else a chance to speak.
Sax is capable. I understand that he lacks my native essence, but he is just as skilled at attunement as I. If we wish to honor the Grand Elder's decree, he is the only Yalian who has both the experience and youth to do so.
The sensations of uncertainty from Sax were quickly overwhelmed by the absolute certainty that poured off the Held Elder, followed by a unifying consensus among the group. The Held Elder rose to his feet, extended his right hand as his walking stick flew to it. In a moment, the Head Elder focused his energy, letting it seep into the stone, which then seemed to resonate as it started swelling with the elemental energy of Yalo. A second later, he gently tapped the staff into the ground, the brilliant energy seeming to slam down and spread across the planetary body, suddenly powering the world engine at the center of the once Namekian moon. It was a rare joy the Yalian would get to enjoy, seeing their homeworld as more than a pale dot through telescopes, if only briefly. Sax, for his part, accepted his fate. Uncertainty was natural, but consensus had been unanimous. Elder Tuska had reminded the group the unfortunate reality that had grown far beyond his peak. Even if Sax recognized his inferior ability to the Held Elder, he knew the decision was the correct one, if only because of the nearly 400-year age gap having struck Tosca with the ravages of time. Yeah, okay, so good job. This is another one from Lai, this time for Sax. I believe, again, I think this is kind of another extension of a backstory. Like, I think this is essentially the mission, like the diplomatic mission that Sax was sent on, like the reason he was sent from Yalo to Namek. There's definitely some interesting little bits, like the fact that the moon, like the whole moon is hollow and can be like driven or can be directed somehow is pretty interesting, pretty strange. There's like a whole I'm going to call it like a magic system, I guess would be the way I would describe it. Like some kind of elemental magic system that the Yalians have. So there's some interesting parts of this one. But it's, I would say it definitely doesn't feel as poignant or as powerful as some of the other ones we've read. And, it's kind of just, it's an explanation for what's going on, but it doesn't have like a personal. It doesn't feel very personal to the character, I would say. Indon saying that I kind of get the impression that Sax is the elder, like the Mormon Church uses the term. He's one of the 12. What was it? 12 elders of this entire moon colony. I mean, I don't know how big the colony is, but he's like there's him, and then there's the head elder, and these elders are all talking to the actual guru elders on Namek proper. So I, you know, he's still really high up in the hierarchy of Namek, to be an elder. And even within his own society, he's pretty high up on the hierarchy. If I'm being honest, I don't think that's where a T0 should be starting from. It's kind of like, it's kind of like being a T0 and saying that you're president, right? But that's just my opinion. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual writing that's going on here. The writing is done really well. I do think the magic system, I'm actually interested in seeing that explored. Any thoughts for Lie on his? That's going to finish us out for tonight, guys. So I believe that's the last one. I don't think I missed any. I'm also not a huge fan of the blue Nameks. I do not think they should be blue. Yeah, who do we... Riz said he spared me the sin log. How dare you? I haven't seen sin in a long time. You don't get to... That's not sparing me. Yeah, so from my notes, I think it's between Doomiston, Yugen, and Hypo's log. Personally, that would be. I think Doomiston's, like, again, this is just my opinion, but I'm the roleplay admin, so I get to, and I'm on stream. You're watching my camera now, so I get to tell you how I feel about things. I think Doomiston's was the best overall story. I think that Yugen's was the strongest, like, character driven story. Like, it has the most, like, passion in it. It really is a very strong moment for that character. And I think that Hypo's is like a good mix of the two. I think, like, Hypo's, like, perfectly in between the narrative versus, like, the message of the story. Sorry, I'm so used to saying Doomiston that, like, I forget that it's not him anymore. It's Genesis. Nigmus wrote the best beginning, middle, and end, but he's also the best writer of all of us, so fuck him. Nigmus probably is the best writer out of all of us. I'm gonna agree with that. Not that every now and then one of us doesn't, do something, that high level that we're talking about, but Nigmus is pretty consistently really good across the board. Maybe we should make them fight for it. Just, like, teleport Genesis, Yugen, and Hypo to a planet, and it'll be a 3-way fight, and whoever wins it gets the Dragon Ball. Yeah, just bring him to Nova Sanctuary and bet. Yeah, it'd be like Dragon Ball Infinity, the movie. Clash for the Dragon Balls. I think no matter who I give this to, by the way, they're going to be the two with the most Dragon Balls, right? Because I'm pretty sure Genesis has one. I know he has one on Cornell, which is basically Endon's. And then Yugen's got one, and then Hypo's got one. Yeah, this is the last ball. So once this one's out, like it's dragon time. Like if we get all of them, we get to actually summon the dragon for real. Yeah, once this gets out, Endon kills us all. I don't know. Endon's got to beat Nova again, and there's it might be a little bit harder this time around. Bribery, yeah, bribery could be a thing. Okay, so I'm getting. I think we've definitely narrowed it down to the three that should get it. Uh, I'm going to. I'm gonna award it. I'm gonna award it to Genesis. I wrote down some numbers. I started ranking them as we were going, and in my rankings, Doomston was I think overall the best story that I read. I did really like Yugen's, and I really liked Hypo's. I mean, I liked all of them. Don't get me wrong. No one did bad here, and I really liked that we had this opportunity, like this chance to do something kind of cool and have a little contest with it. Um, so I think the executive decision is that it's gonna be Genesis Dragon Ball. So let's go to Dragon Balls. And Genesis is the proud owner of the 7-star Dragon Ball. And now Genesis has the 1-star ball too. He's just never role played actually getting it. So he's gonna find two at once. All right. Let me. I guess we'll go to this thing now. Do we? I don't know. You guys? Anything you guys want to talk about as far as role play is concerned, or even just the mud or something? If not, we're probably gonna close the stream here. There are 2 logs coming that I should be amped for. When do we start a DVI podcast? Honestly, Rizian talked to me. This is maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Rizian was talking about that we should do a DBI podcast and like interview the role players on Dragon Ball Infinity and like get a chance for them to like talk about their stories, like do like a deep dive and ask them questions and stuff. Which I would love to do. That would be super fun. But I don't know the logistics of how to actually set that up and get that done. Riz probably would be the one to really ask. Yeah, we could do RP and talk about the mud and stuff. I think a lot of the podcast thing would be like, we're still waiting on Rendo to finish those RPP donate bonuses. I dropped what? A middle finger in your face. Oh, because Riz offered to join or help tonight. I didn't know how we would do that. Like logistically, I didn't know how that would get done. Um, so I mean, if if it weren't something I don't know. Like, sorry, Riz. I wasn't trying to put it. I wasn't trying to make you feel unwanted or anything. Um, I just figured that since I'm the only one of our main role players that doesn't have a submission, that and I'm the one who created the contest, I should be the one that reads it. I really don't know, Lie. I don't know anything about Twitch. This is like I spent like 30 minutes looking up, and Riz has told me how to do this. It took me 30 minutes to figure out how to get OBS to do what it's doing right now, where like I transition from the two scenes or whatever. Um, Even though that was just a few button clicks, it was like, okay, like I gotta figure all this out, and then spent like another 30 minutes like just getting all the stream keys and sharing the DVI RP email and stuff. I think one time on a stream, I jumped in the Discord call with Riz, but I'm not sure if everyone could hear me, or it was a bit hard to. I remember it being a little difficult. It's been so long since I've even thought about the purple hat reviews. It's been a long time. Um, it's been a long time since Lai did all of his videos and stuff. But Lai, you used to do like 30-minute to hour-long videos where you would review like 5 or 10 logs all in one. Well, maybe not. Like maybe 5 or something. But you had some long-ass videos. I try to keep mine somewhere between like 10 minutes and 20 minutes. That's usually about the best I can do. All right. Well, it was fun, guys. I will be awarding all of these and, cleaning up the forums tonight and tomorrow. So you might not see your points come in tonight, but between now and tomorrow I'll get all that done. And I'm so grateful to spend some time with you. Hope everybody had fun, and I will see you guys on the chat channel. Peace out.